Good day, everyone, especially to you, Dr. Jeah. My name is Jeah Rojo, and today we're going to talk about the Chapter 6, which is the Tourism Public Sector. So before anything else, I'm going to provide to you the topic outline and the objectives of this topic. So for the topic outline, we do have the introduction to the tourism public sector, the Department of Tourism and its functions, regulations, and policies, the Philippine Tourism Authority, and the Intramuros Administration, its heritage preservation and regulations, the other government agencies in tourism such as the NPDC, NHI, NCCA, PCVC, and others, and also the economic and infrastructure support by NEDA, DTI, PEZA, DPWH, DOTC, and transportation agencies, and also the regulatory and support agencies such as the PAGCOR, DFA, DILG, Bureau of Customs and Coast Guard, and lastly, the Tourism Enterprise Development under like TAZA and also the Nayong Filipino Foundation. So for the learning objectives, first is to understand the role of government in tourism development. Next is we do have to identify key government agencies and their responsibilities in tourism. Next is to analyze the impact of laws and regulations on tourism enterprises. Also to recognize the importance of heritage and cultural preservation in tourism. And lastly is to assess the role of infrastructure and economic support in tourism growth. So this chapter deals with particular government agencies directly involved in the promotion of tourism in our country. So several allied government agencies may also be included in this chapter, as these agencies, though not directly involved in the promotion of tourism, tend to provide a substantial contribution to the efficient operation of the tourism industry. First is we do have the Department of Tourism under the Presidential Decree number 189 enacted on May 11, 1973. It is a primary policy making, planning, programming, coordinating, and administrative entity of the executive branch of government in the development of the tourism industry, both domestic and international. So this gave rise to presidential decree creating the Department of Tourism, which was enacted to make the tourism a positive instrument towards accelerated national development through which more people from other countries may visit and better appreciate the country, and through which the Filipinos themselves may learn more about the natural beauty, history, and culture of the Philippines, and thus develop greater pride and a commitment to the nation. And it was during the year 1973 when the Philippine government realized that there is need to realign government efforts toward trade promotion and tourism development for greater effectiveness. Hence, the need for government's immediate and priority attention. Philippine Tourism Authority was enacted revising the Charter of the Philippine Tourism Authority, which was originally created under Presidential Decree number 189 dated May 11, 1973. So, strengthening the Philippine Tourism Authority was needed in order to be in a better position to effectively unite and integrate related activities and services of both government and private entities pertaining to tourism and development projects. And next is travel tax. So it is a PTA's main source of income, and it is a levy imposed by the government on individuals like citizens of the Philippines, permanent resident aliens who have stayed in the country for more than a year, who are leaving the country irrespective of the place where the air ticket is issued, as provided for by the Presidential Decree 1183 as amended by Presidential Decree 1205. And the payment of travel taxes are coursed through the Bureau of International Revenue. Next is Intramuros Administration under the Presidential Decree number 1616 enacted on April 10, 1979. So, the Intramuros Administration is responsible for the orderly restoration and development of Intramuros as a monument to the Hispanic period of Philippine history. So it shall also ensure that the general appearance of Intramuros shall conform to the Philippine Spanish architecture of the 16th to 19th century. And a number of business enterprises have attempted to provide a more modern look to Intramuros' increased business activities, which added to the pollution of Intramuros and demolished some old structures. But Intramuros administration has been quite strict at times, especially when civil society exerts the needed pressure. So, an application of the law, Mr. Robert San Jose wishes to put up an 85 million peso sports complex within the vicinity of the Intramuros area. So, what advice will you give? For legal opinion, Mr. San Jose must first secure an approval at the Intramuros administration for the architectural design of the building of which he is about to erect before he plans to put up his building within the Intramuros area. Otherwise, Mr. San Jose cannot be allowed to erect his building within the Intramuros. Next is other government agencies. So first is we do have the National Parks Development Committee, or also known as NPDC, and it is a government agency in the Philippines that is responsible for developing, managing, and maintaining national parks, particularly in urban areas. So it ensures that these parks remain safe, sustainable, and accessible for public recreation, cultural activities, and environmental preservation. So this committee was created originally as an exclusive committee on January 14, 1963 for the development of the Quezon Memorial, Luneta, and other national parks. So it was later designated as the National Parks Development Committee despite an attempt to transfer to the Bureau of Forest Development, Department of Natural Resources, and the NPDC has remained under the office of the President. So next is we do have the National Historical Institute, or NHI. So it is under the Presidential Decree number 260 dated on August 1, 1973. It has declared certain sites, churches, and places as national shrines, monuments, and landmarks, and placed their preservation, restoration, or reconstruction under the supervision and control of the National Historical Institute in collaboration with the development of tourism. Hence, the National Historical Institute was given the right to declare historical and cultural sites and edifices as national shrines, monuments, and landmarks. All monetary contributions and donations to the archives of the National Historical Institute are tax-exempt and deductible from the taxable income of the donor. Next is we do have the National Center for Culture and Arts, or NCCA. So, Republic Act 7356 has been enacted in order to create the mandate of the National Center for Culture and Arts. Its functions are as follows. First is formulate policies for the development of culture and the arts. Next is to coordinate and implement the overall policies and programs of attached agencies on the development of culture and arts as stated under Executive Order number 80. Next is to administer the National Endowment Fund for Culture and the Arts. Also, to encourage artistic creation within a climate of artistic freedom. And also, to develop and promote the Filipino national culture and arts and preserve Filipino cultural heritage. Next, as we do have the Philippine Convention and Visitors Corporation, or also known as PCVC. It is a non-stock, non-profit government corporation attached to the Department of Tourism, tasked with promoting the country as an ideal tourism, convention, and incentives travel destination. So, its Conventions and Incentive Travel Unit provides comprehensive information, assistance, and guidance to meeting planners and incentives travel organizers who seek an ideal venue for their meetings and incentive groups. Next, as we do have the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, and it is under the Presidential Decree number 520 issued on July 23, 1974. So it empowers the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or formerly Central Bank of the Philippines, to organize a corporation which will manage and administer the Philippine International Convention Center. Next is we do have the National Economic Development Authority, or also known as NEDA. It is the country's independent economic development and planning agency. So it was created in pursuance of the goals of promoting the economic and social development and stability of the country. It is headed by the President as the Chairman of the NEDA Board, with the Secretary of the Socio-Economic Planning, concurrently NEDA Director General, as Vice Chairman. So the NEDA may, in the discharge of its duties and functions, call upon any private person or representative of the private sector for such views or advice as may be pertinent to any matter under its consideration. Next is we do have the Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, or known as PAGCOR. PAGCOR is a government-owned and controlled corporation existing under the Presidential Decree number 1869 issued on July 11, 1983 by President Ferdinand Marcos. So it is a government-owned corporation that regulates, operates, and licenses gambling establishments in the Philippines. It generates revenue for government programs like ensuring responsible gaming and industry integrity. Next is the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, or also called as DENR, is under the Section 4 of Executive Order 192. So under the Section 4 of Executive Order 192, the Department of Environment and Natural Resources is mandated to be the primary government agency responsible for the conservation, management, development, and proper use of the country's environment and natural resources, including those in reservations, watershed areas, and lands of the public domain, as well as the licensing, utilization, and regulation of all natural resources as may be provided by law in order to ensure equitable sharing of the benefits derived therefrom for the welfare of the present and future generations of the Filipinos. So the DNR's mission is to be the dynamic force behind people's initiatives in the protection, conservation, development, and management of the environment through strategic alliances and partnerships, relevant policies and programs, and appropriate information technology towards sustainable development. Next is the Republic Act 9147, or the Wildlife Resources Conservation and Protection Act on July 30, 2001. So it is a Philippine law aimed at conserving and protecting wildlife species under their habitats. So it regulates the collection, trade, and use of wildlife to prevent exploitation, ensuring ecological balance and biodiversity conservation. So this act is under the Department of Environment and Natural Resources, and it shall have jurisdiction over all terrestrial plants and animal species, all turtles and tortoises, and wetland species, including but not limited to crocodiles, water birds, and all amphibians and dugong. Next is we do have the Department of Agriculture, or DA. It shall have jurisdiction over all the declared aquatic critical habitats, all aquatic resources, including but not limited to all fishes, aquatic plants, invertebrates, and all marine mammals except dugong. For the implementation of international agreement on international trade and endangered species of wild fauna and flora, the management authorities for terrestrial and aquatic resources shall be protected areas and wildlife bureau of the DANR and the Bureau of Fisheries and Aquatic Resources of the DA respectively. Next is we do have the Department of Labor and Employment, or also called as DOLE. So it is the Philippine government agency responsible for promoting employment, protecting workers' rights, and ensuring fair labor practices. So it formulates policies and programs to improve working conditions and uphold labor standards. For the next department, we do have the Department of Public Works and Highways, or known as DPWH, and it functions as the engineering and construction arm of the government tasked to continuously develop its technology for the purpose of ensuring the safety of all infrastructure facilities and securing for all public works and highways the highest efficiency and quality in construction. So the DPWH is currently responsible for the planning, design, construction, and maintenance of infrastructure, especially in the national highways, flood control and water resources development system, and other public works in accordance with national development objectives. So the work of DPWH is very important, especially in providing land access to tourist destinations, sites, and service facilities. Next is we do have the Department of Transportation and Communication, or DOTC. So it is a primary policy, planning, programming, coordinating, implementing, regulating, and administrative entity of the executive branch of the government in the promotion, development, and regulation of dependable and coordinated networks of the transportation and communication systems, as well as in the fast, safe, efficient, and reliable postal transportation and communication services. So these are the following that are attached agencies of the DOTC. So first is we do have the Land Transportation Office, or also known as LTO. It is a proper agency which controls the registration and operation of motor vehicles and the licensing of owners, dealers, conductors, drivers, and similar matters. Next is we do have the Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB. It is the agency which issues, amends, revises, suspends, or cancels certificates of public convenience or permits authorizing the operation of public land transportation services provided by motorized vehicles, and to prescribe the appropriate terms and conditions. Next is we do have the Marina, or also called as Maritime Industry Authority. It integrates the development, promotion, and regulation of the maritime industry in the country. Next is we do have the Air Transportation Office, or called as ATO. It is primarily charged with the technical and operational phase of civil aviation matters. Its primary function is to establish and enforce rules and regulations for the inspection and registration of all aircraft owned and operated in the Philippines and all air facilities. It is also in charge in the operation and maintenance of the national airports, air navigation, and other similar facilities. We also have the Civil Aeronautics Board, or also known as CAB. It regulates the economic aspect of air transportation and has general supervision and regulation of and jurisdiction and control over air carriers as well as their property, property rights, equipment, facilities, and franchise. It also has the power to issue, deny, amend, revise, alter, modify, cancel, suspend, or revoke any temporary permit or certificate of public convenience and necessity. Next is we do have the Light Rail Transit Authority, or LRTA. This is a corporate body which shall be primarily responsible for the construction, operation, maintenance, and lease of light rail transit systems in the Philippines, giving due regard to the reasonable requirements of the public transportation system of the country. Next is we do have the Metro Rail Transit Corporation, or also known as MRTC. It undertook to build MRT3, which it shall own for 25 years, after which ownership shall be transferred to the Philippine government in accordance with the Republic Act No. 6957, or the Build, Operate, and Transfer Law. This allows MRIC, either by itself or through any estate developers, to develop commercial premises in the MRT3 structure to obtain advertising income therefrom. Next is we do have the Philippine National Railways, or the PNR, which it is a corporation to serve as the instrumentality of the government of the Philippines in providing a nationwide railroad transportation system. So, the Philippine National Railways shall not be subject to the authority and supervision of the Public Service Commission. Next is we do have the Department of Trade and Industry under the Executive Order 133, which remains effective up to the present time. The Department of Trade and Industry serves as the primary coordinative, promotive, and facilitative arm for trade, industry, and investment activities. It acts as a catalyst for intensified private sector activity to accelerate and sustain economic growth through a comprehensive industrial growth strategy, a progressive and socially responsible liberalization and deregulation program, and policies designed for the expansion and diversification of both domestic and foreign trade. The end goal is to grow and expand Philippine trade and industry as the means to generate jobs and raise income so that Filipinos may enjoy continuing improvements in their quality of life. Next is we do have the Board of Investments under the Omnibus Investment Code of 1987. So it is responsible for the regulation and promotion of investments in the Philippines. It is the lead investment promotion agency of the Philippine government, responsible for encouraging and regulating investments in key industries. It provides incentives, support, and policies to boost economic growth and attract local and foreign investors. Next is we have the PEZA, or the Philippine Economic Zone Authority. It is under the Republic Act No. 7916, enacted on July 25, 1994. It is a government agency that promotes and facilitates investments in special economic zones. It provides tax incentives, infrastructure support, and business assistance to attract local and foreign investors, boosting economic growth and employment. So, PEZA grants fiscal and non-fiscal incentives to developers of economic zones, export producers, and IT service exporters. So, it offers ready-to-occupy locations to foreign investors who are expert producers or IT service exporters in world-class and environment-friendly economic zones and IT parks or buildings. Next is we have the Special Economic Zones, or SEZ. It is selected areas with highly developed or which have the potential to be developed into agro-industrial, industrial tourist or recreational, commercial, banking, investment, and financial centers. So the term special economic zones, hereinafter referred to as the eco zones, are selected areas with highly developed or which have the potential to be developed into agro-industrial and financial centers. So an eco zone may contain any or all of the following: the industrial estates, export processing zones, free trade zones, and tourist or recreational centers. Next is we do have the DFA, or the Department of Foreign Affairs. It is the prime agency of government responsible for the pursuit of the state's foreign policy and the nerve center for a foreign service worthy of the trust and pride of every Filipino. Next is we do have the Department of Interior and Local Government, or also known as DILG. It helps the President oversee local governments and ensures public order and safety. It advises on policies, laws, enforces rules for local governance, and supports law enforcement and disaster response. The DILG also works to strengthen local government capabilities, promote peace and order, and improve basic services through coordination between officials and communities. Also, it oversees the organization and training of the National Police Force to maintain security. Next is the Bureau of Food and Drugs, or BFAD. It is an attached agency under the Department of Health in charge of the registration of processed foods, drugs, medical devices, in vitro diagnostic reagents, cosmetics, and household hazardous substance products. And next, we also do have the Bureau of Customs under the Republic Act of 1937 enacted on June 22, 1957. Entitled Revising the Tariff and Customs Laws, jurisdiction of the Bureau shall include the general duties as amended by Republic Act No. 9135 dated April 27, 2001. The powers and assess, collect lawful revenues, prevent smuggling and other frauds, control vessels or aircrafts doing foreign trade, enforce tariff and custom laws, control the handling of foreign mails for revenues and prevention purposes, control import and export cargoes, and jurisdiction over forfeiture and seizure cases. So the Bureau of Customs have exclusive control, direction, and management of custom houses, warehouses, offices, wharves, and other premises in the respective ports of entry, in all cases without prejudice to the general police powers of the city or municipality wherein such premises are situated. Next is we do have the Philippine Coast Guard. It is the government agency responsible for maritime safety, security, law enforcement, environmental protection, and search and rescue operations in Philippine waters. It ensures safe and lawful maritime activities while responding to emergencies and protecting marine resources. Next is we do have the Professional Regulatory Board for Custom Brokers. Regulating the practice of customs brokers profession in the Philippines and creating the Professional Regulatory Board for Custom Brokers. So, pursuant to the national policy, the government shall provide a program to set up a climate conducive to the practice of the profession and maximize the capability and potential of our Filipino custom brokers. Also, we do have the Nayong Pilipino Foundation, or NPF. It was created under the Presidential Decree No. 37 on November 16, 1972, with the intention of promoting, encouraging, and initiating research and development projects and activities in social sciences, humanities, social and amelioration, and allied fields. The foundation is a non-stock, non-profit public corporation organized, established, and operated in the public interest, and no portion of its fund and income shall inure to the benefit of any of its members. And lastly, we do have the Tourism Enterprise Zone Authority, or known as TEZA. Under the Tourism Act, the Tourism Enterprise Zone Authority is empowered to administer tourism zones, regulate tourism zone enterprises, and grant tax perks. So the tourism public sector plays a vital role in regulating, promoting, and developing the tourism industry to ensure sustainable growth, economic benefits, and cultural preservation. These government agencies create and enforce policies that enhance tourism infrastructure, safety, and environmental protection, ensuring a high-quality experience for travelers. Public sector involvement also includes marketing and international promotion, attracting visitors and boosting local economies. Additionally, it supports workforce development, tourism education, and collaboration with private stakeholders to maintain industry standards. So, for that, overall, the tourism public sector ensures that tourism benefits both the economy and local communities while preserving cultural and natural resources. And that would be all for this chapter. I hope you have learned something. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.